8 clips, 8 ordinary moments that tilt just enough into something we can't quite name. By the end of this video, you might find yourself double-checking the shadows outside your window. We pulled together short, found footage uploads from TikTok, Reddit, and YouTube. Nothing staged here for a Hollywood jump scare, just people filming their nights and getting more than they expected. Some of these are easily explained. Others linger in the parts of the frame where light and reason don't comfortably reach. Watch closely and decide for yourself. 1. Drain figure. TikTok. A group of friends were laughing at the side of a quiet roadside, filming the passing cars and their own silly antics. One of them pans the camera low toward a concrete roadside drain, and that's when the mood shifts. In a dark mouth of the drain, between the wet concrete and the gutter shadow, a pale vertical shape appears to stand, a silhouette that looks like a woman half hidden, head bowed, as if watching them. You can see the camera wobble as the recorder steps back. The friends whisper into the mic. One voice rises, breathless, the kind of noise that's half laughter, half panic. Someone throws a flashlight beam toward the drain, and the figure freezes in the frame for a breathless second before the light skews the shadow and whatever was there becomes impossible to identify. They flee. The uploader posts a follow-up clip the next day. They came back with someone else and the police. The train was empty. No sign of footprints, no sign of a person having been there. No follow-up available beyond that. Possible explanations here are straightforward. A person could have been crouched in the culvert and slipped away when the light hit, or the drainage pipe's inner curve might catch a passing shadow at just that angle. Clothing hung on a pipe or a reflective fabric could catch a beam and shape a human-like outline. Camera compression and low light tend to create hard edges where there are none. Yet the timing feels uncanny. Why would someone be standing inside a drainage opening watching strangers? Some viewers suggest a trespasser or an abandoned statue. Others quietly raise the possibility of something else, a presence that prefers the margins. What do you think we're seeing here? 2. Poltergeist door. Reddit. 2 roommates shared a series of short clips from their house over a week. At first it's small, a kitchen cabinet nudged slightly open, a bedroom door that shuts on its own in the middle of the night. Their tone in the comments is casual, the kind of nervous humor you use to keep fear at bay. One evening, their phone captures the living room door moving slowly by itself. Not a slam, but an almost deliberate closing. A soft creak, a faint thump, and then silence. On screen, the camera is handheld. You can hear their quiet commentary off mic, the staccato breath of someone unnerved but trying to stay rational.
A plate slides a few inches on the counter in a different clip. Unexplained dents appear in furniture, and on one clip, a framed photo tips forward without disturbance. The women set up a tripod for a longer recording, and the door closes twice more during the night. They wake, exchange texts about whether to call someone. They post, asking if anyone else has seen this. Natural causes are the first line of reasoning. Drafty old houses, warped hinges, uneven floors that make doors swing. Pets, loose air conditioning flaps, or a prankster with access could explain repeated events. Video cuts and editing can make independent events appear more connected than they were. On the other hand, the pattern, multiple objects moving, doors closing when no one is visible, is exactly the sort of behavior people historically linked to poltergeist activity. Focused, noisy, and centered on the household's daily life. We'll leave the label alone, but we can't ignore the pattern. Is it a faulty hinge, a practical joke, or something that prefers to rearrange the things we leave out? 3. Lakeside live photo. YouTube TikTok mash. A small group celebrated a birthday by the lake. Someone took a live photo, a short burst that captures motion just before and after the shutter, of 2 women sitting by the bonfire. When viewed frame by frame, one of the frames shows a pale, childlike figure standing behind them, hands at their sides, face turned slightly toward the camera. The regular face recognition apps fail to register the figure as a person in the background. The women say they never saw anyone standing there. The clip is strange because everything else about the scene is so ordinary. The orange bloom of the fire reflected in the ripples, a cooler tipped on its side, marshmallows half melted. The camera's movement, a small shift as the photographer laughs, catches that single frame where the background seems to contain a presence. When they zoom in, the figure is out of focus but undeniably humanoid, bone pale against the dark tree line. The uploader insists no one else was there. No security footage, no neighbor reports. The uploader says no follow-up is available. A plausible picture here is pareidolia. The human brain is a pattern hunter, and low-resolution frames can trick us into faces where only light and shade exist. A passerby, briefly behind the group, could explain the captured image. A long exposure flare or reflection off a pale jacket could distort into a childlike outline. Yet there's an extra chill when a photograph registers something the human eye didn't notice in the moment, as if the camera records a whisper we missed. Was there someone behind them who fled before they looked? Or did the shutter catch a memory of another presence tied to that place? Which feels more likely to you? 4. Backyard watcher and damage. Reddit. A man walks his dog in the yard late at night. Branches have been snapping nearby for weeks. Lights have flickered.
This night, he carries a flashlight and something that looks like a pistol for protection. The clip is grainy. The dog suddenly growls, stiffens, and pulls toward a stand of trees. The man trains his light between the trunks, and for a blink, a dark figure moves between branches, a vertical form that seems too thin to be a deer, not the gait of any animal he recognizes. The beam hits a flash of reflective material, and then it's gone. Follow-up footage shows the same yard in daylight, several trees with fresh, almost surgical-looking splits in their limbs. Neighbors mention unexplained power outages in the area the same week. The uploader posts a later clip showing a muddy path where something massive might have forced itself through undergrowth. Some locals suggest a large animal, maybe a bear or elk, could account for damaged trees and odd sounds. That's plausible, especially in rural areas where wildlife moves close to human habitations. A camera artifact or a person hunkered down in brush could look like a strange figure in the dark. Police were alerted in one comment, but there's no public record attached to the post. No follow-up available. Still, animals rarely trigger the kind of focused, almost watchful posture some witnesses describe. Dogs often react to scents we can't detect, and their unease is a data point worth noting. When a companion animal locks onto something we can't see, it sharpens our sense that the unseen is nearby. Is this simply late-night wildlife, or is it a watcher that leaves environmental traces? The broken branches and outages complicate a tidy explanation. Which interpretation do you find more convincing? Little girl on slide, TikTok. A mother films her toddler on a backyard slide. The child is giggling, talking to the empty air beside the slide, waving to someone off camera. Then, mid-play, the child glances up toward the top of the slide with an expression that doesn't match the game. A sudden freeze, eyes widening, a small intake of breath, and then a look that could be described as fear. She bolts down and clings to her mother, who laughs it off at first, and then grows quiet when the girl won't return to the slide. The footage is short but unsettling because the child interacts with something unseen and then reacts as if startled. Parents in the comments debate whether it's an imaginary friend, an insect buzzing near the ear, or a trick of shadows formed by the late afternoon sun. Children's perception is fluid. They often respond to stimuli adults miss. The uploader clarifies in a follow-up comment that the girl later refused to play on that slide for several days, and that no one else was nearby when it happened. No further documentation exists. Plausible natural reasons include the child seeing a small animal, a square-up or bird, perched near the top, or being momentarily disoriented by a flash of sunlight.
Developmentally, toddlers can interact with imagined companions without any paranormal meaning. But the rawness of a child's fear is hard to shrug off. Adults sometimes discount those signals, yet children's senses are tuned differently to their environment. Could this be a fleeting encounter with a harmless animal, or does the hesitance that followed tell us something else happened, something the camera didn't quite capture? Repeat haunting, YouTuber Tristan. One creator has made a habit of documenting odd happenings at every place he lives. He posts a compilation of clips, lights dimming, doors opening on their own, chairs nudged out of place. Concerned viewers have called him out for selective editing. Others point to patterns, the same sorts of disturbances occurring in different houses over months. In one clip, a handle turns slowly as if guided by an invisible hand. In another, a chair slides back when no one is in the room. Skeptics highlight tuts between clips, occasional shaky edits, and reenactment-style inserts that muddy the timeline. Supporters say the frequency and similarity of events across locations argues against a simple hoax. Tristan himself admits the footage is imperfect, and he invites suggestions. The narrative is messy. Where some see a hustling content creator building a series, others see someone consistently troubled by a series of inexplicable incidents. Here we must weigh human factors and pattern recognition. Habitual documentation invites confirmation bias. You notice what fits your hypothesis and package it for an audience. Some phenomena may be staged, misinterpreted, or exaggerated by framing. Yet the appearance of similar episodes across unrelated settings raises a question. Could some individuals, by virtue of what they bring with them, emotional stress, relationships, or objects, experience repeated disturbances? That's a long-held claim in paranormal lore. Which side do you lean toward? A storytelling arc built for views, or a genuine pattern crying out for explanation? 7. Hatch in the woods. Reddit hikers.
A group hiking a remote trail finds a rusted metal hatch half buried in leaf litter. Curiosity wins. One of them sets the phone to record in case anything interesting turns up. When they lever the hatch open, the beam of the flashlight falls on a cavity, and for a beat, something in the dark inside catches the light and looks back. The film shows what appears to be a pale, rounded surface, like a face pressed to the inner rim, and when they call out, it retreats in the shadow. Excitement turns to sudden unease. The group debates whether to leave or keep exploring. They decide to close the hatch and report the location in a later comment, saying they felt watched for the rest of the hike. The uploader later writes that this area had old, abandoned utility structures, and that authorities told them not to disturb things like that. No follow-up available.
Pareidolia and reflections are prime suspects. A discarded can, a pale piece of insulation, or condensation reflecting the flashlight could produce something that resembles a face at a glance. Alternatively, small animals, raccoons, feral cats, sometimes approach enclosed cool spaces and can appear startlingly human-like in poor light. The thing about this clip is the social dynamic. The thrill of exploration quickly collides with the primal alarm of something unseen retreating into darkness. Is it simply a scrap of material catching a beam, or did they glimpse a living presence in a place humans rarely inhabit? 8. Campsite orb and dog reaction, TikTok/YouTube hybrid. On the final clip, things narrow to something that refuses tidy explanation. A lone camper arrives at a small clearing with his dog. He sets up a basic tent, lights a small lantern, and dangles a GoPro on a low stick pointed toward the tree line. The dog noses at the underbrush, whining softly. At one point, a small glowing orb appears in the distance between the trees, a soft, pulsing light that doesn't behave like a camp lantern or a headlamp. It moves slowly, almost hovering, and the dog suddenly stiffens and barks into the dark, fixated on that point. The uploader zooms in. The orb's edges remain too clean for a lens flare from the tent light. It approaches the camera's field and then retreats. In some frames, it looks like a bright ball of light. In others, it oddly dims and exposes a darker void behind it. The dog refuses to approach the tree line and spends the night close to the tent. Morning footage shows disturbed undergrowth, but no burnt or melted ground, and no footprints leading to or from the site. No follow-up available. Natural explanations include insects catching a lens flare, dust motes illuminated and captured as points of light, or another camper's headlamp in the distance. All plausible, especially with low-resolution optics. But again, the animal's behavior is key. Dogs often react to scents, sounds, and frequencies outside our perception. When an orb is accompanied by a clear change in animal behavior, the balance of probability shifts slightly from pure visual artifact toward an event that affected more than just pixels. Is it a trick of light and lens, or something that moved through space in a way we don't recognize? That lingering, pulsing glow is the image that closes this collection, the frame that might make you check the trees outside your own tent. Why do these clips get under our skin? They have a simple, shared logic. Ordinary settings, mundane moments, then a small rupture, a shadow where no shadow should be, a movement on the edge of frame, a companion animal that behaves as if a line has been crossed. Cameras promise a kind of honesty. They are witnesses that do not forget. Yet cameras are also flawed witnesses. They compress, they lag, they invent edges where none exist. That tension between what we saw and what the camera keeps is the engine of unease. When animals react, our skepticism is complicated. A dog's hair rising, a bird flying off a branch, these are signals from a nervous system tuned for survival. We can't simply dismiss them as pixels. On the other hand, viral platforms amplify anomalies. Viewers swarm, theories proliferate, and certainty dissolves into a spectrum of plausible answers. That's how folklore advances in the digital age, through short clips, urgent comments, and repeated viewings that turn ambiguity into narrative. We didn't present these for proof. None of these clips settles the question. Some have plausible natural explanations, others remain stubbornly ambiguous. What they do provide is a space to feel the itch of the unknown. They invite us to ask questions we don't always like to consider in daylight. What are we missing when we look the other way? And what does it mean when the margins of our world seem to watch back? If one of these 8 scenes gave you goosebumps, tell us which one and why in the comments. Subscribe for more compilations that take a curious, skeptical look at the uncanny. And if you filmed something strange and want us to consider it, check the description for how to submit your clip.
We'll keep watching and we'll keep asking the hard questions, calmly, cautiously, together. Until next time, keep your lights on a little longer tonight.